here's what bothers me is when I'm running my low beam, I get all three lights. Passing lights, I get the headlight, but the minute I go into high beam, passing lights go off. Doesn't matter what your toggle switch is set to, it shuts them down. And for me, if I'm going to high beam, it's because I need more light. And the last thing I want to do is shut off two lights. I want to keep all the lights I have on. So that's just my mentality. That's what I'm shooting for. I want to resolve that. I want to make it like that, regardless if it's high beam or low beam. If you watch my video on the passing light setup for the Softail, the Fat Boy, then you know I had this same setup on that bike. Now it's an older Evo, of course. I didn't have the auxiliary switch hooked up. I think, well, the Fat Boy didn't come with passing lights, but I didn't hook it up like it was a Heritage or anything like that. Instead, I wired it to that center console switch, and I just totally tapped into everything. This being a newer bike, I try to lean towards anything that is a plug and play harness just because it keeps things clean, right? A little bit simpler, but at the same time, I'm not gonna, break the bank trying to do some of the stuff like that, unless it's absolutely necessary. Maybe it's too complex, maybe it'll throw codes, whatever it is. In this particular case, easy solution. So here's what I'm talking about. Custom Dynamics, they make this little harness deal that plugs in to the bike, and it will essentially bypass that function that triggers your headlight or your passing lights to turn off when you turn on your high beam. So in this, and this is actually, I was super surprised. So Custom Dynamics typically tends to be a little higher priced for their items, and this one is very reasonably priced. $20 for this, and maybe that's a lot if you look at what you get. It's just this wiring thing, but I mean, to me it's worth it, right? Like, again, you don't have to tap any wires or anything like that. You just plug and play. Doesn't get any easier than that. This kit works for more than one bike. So looking at the instructions here, you get two sheets. You get one that works for Road King models, and then you get another set of instructions here for Softail models. Well, we don't need those ones, right? Not working on a Softail. So what we do need is we need these Road King instructions. So sounds pretty simple. I kind of like browsed through this. We essentially got to gain access to the headlight bucket, so that way we can plug this thing in. We will need to get it access to that toggle switch, and that should take care of business for us. So let's take a look at what this wiring diagram looks like. So they give you kind of two examples. One is a Road King with the standard switch configuration, and then the other one is a Road King with this switch with non-removable wiring. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that means. I'm assuming that there you go. So I guess the wiring at that toggle that we just looked at, so that's that guy right there. If it's soldered, then we are to follow this, and if it's not soldered, then we follow this diagram, which really just says, hey, disconnect it and throw some heat shrink on it so it doesn't short on anything, right? Now, the one thing I'm not sure about, and we're going to learn this in the process, is it calls out the fender tip light and hardness. Well, my RK doesn't have it. Blue, where's your tip light, man? So I'll have to figure out, I would imagine, just like a lot of other vehicles that are out there on the market, they make one harness, it doesn't matter what it is, and essentially end up putting dummy plugs or whatever on the things that aren't used based on what you buy, right? So let's go ahead and get started into this. It should be, like I said, pretty easy. All we got to do is first get that headlight out. Now, step number one, Let's cover this fender so that way we don't scratch it or bang anything on it. All right, so I'm guessing that plug right there is the one we're gonna have to get access to, just because it looks just like the one that's in the package, and I'll show you what that connector looks like. But the toggle is right up in there. So we're gonna have to undo the little retaining screw or whatever the heck you want to call that thing just up here, and it's pretty tight, so I may have to get, actually it looks like it's molded in, so I'm gonna have to take a better look at that. But we'll have to get access to that. But like I was saying, the that connector looks like this guy, right? So I believe that what we're looking to do is get that guy in the middle, so it plugs in there like a Y connector, and then we'll have to run this one up to that center common, and that should be it. So let me get in here and see if I can get access to that toggle switch. All right, so I got my switch out, and it was literally just, you know, that little rubber cap. It's just a screw, so you got to unscrew that, and then you can pull this through. And looking at it from here, you can't tell, like I was saying, that there's the two different diagrams here, one for the non-removable wiring versus the standard switch configuration. And so now I got to look at, okay, there's 4 pins on a plug, right? Well, this had this really nice cover on here, and I need to be able to access and view what these wires are. So I just took a razor blade to cut that. Now I'm going to hang on to this because I'm actually going to clean it and put it back on, and just use a couple of pieces of electrical tape to get it to stay in place. Now you can use electrical tape and wrap it all the way around there, but that kind of gets messy. It doesn't look as good. I like, if you can, you know, being able to reuse this stuff. Just try not to tear it up when you're cutting it away. So looking at that diagram, the wire we've got to eliminate or interrupt, so whether you unplug it or you cut it, is number 1, pin 1, which is a yellow wire, which turns into a black wire. So you've got, on the switch side of the thing, you got 4 wires, one going to, well, it's going to go to nothing, right? Then you're going to have 2 and 3, which are just jumpered, so that just returns itself. So let's take a look at that. You can see that right there. See how that one just returns itself? And then number 4 is going to go to the bottom of the switch. And then our little doodad here, this is the doodad, he's going to go into that center position. Now, if we have the non-removable wiring, we're going to have to cut and splice. Now, that's something I didn't want to have to do, but because of the configuration of this bike, we might have to. But ultimately, what we'll do is cut and we're going to have to put a different tip, or we'll have to put the male side of this flat connector to be intercepted here on this middle switch. So let's make sure, we're going to make sure first that the yellow is interrupted, right? Because bottom line, number 1, whether it's on this one or this one, needs to be disconnected. So let's do that. So here's yellow number 1. That's this guy here, and is in the middle. And like I said, it's in the way, or it's soldered on, so we can't manipulate that. So we're gonna have to do it with some cutters and make our way through. So when I do this, I'm going to actually cut it back a little ways, maybe about 3 inches or so. So that way I leave myself enough wire to put that termination, the male termination for that plug in place, and then I'll be able to connect that. Now the other thing is, we need to make sure number 4, which is the opposite side of the plug, which is this one, is plugged into the bottom post, which it is, right? So simple. Cut this, add a termination to it, so we're plugged into that, and that should be it. And then we just plug that guy into the harness that we were talking about. So let me go ahead and cut that, and we'll get a termination on it real quick. All right, so I'm doing a little bit of step-by-step on this because this is something that you're probably going to want to know how to do it before you jump into this, just so you're aware of what you're up against, what tools you should have. It's not complicated at all, but it's good to know. So we're going to go ahead and cut that wire. Now we'll have to cap this, so I'll throw some heat shrink on that a little bit later, but we'll get that taken care of. And now I want to put that termination on, so that's simple. Now you can do it with the wire cutters or whatever, however it is. I like to use this little tool here. It makes life a lot easier, just like that, and I can measure out what I need. You don't need fancy tools in order to do this stuff. You can do it with some pretty basic stuff. So don't shy away from it. So there, I got my termination on that, and I'm going to use just some channel locks to crimp it down. Now I have actual termination crimpers, but channel locks work really good for me for whatever reason. All right, so now that we have that in place, I can take our harness here and we're going to plug this guy in. I have to pull this little sleeve back a little bit. There we go. So that's that. I can put this switch back in, but for now we're going to leave it out just because we want to test it before we all put it all back together. So now, make sure I got a fuse in there. Yep, got a fuse in there. So now what I need to do is just go ahead and plug this in to that line, and like I said, well, just curious to see, because there was another connector that looked just like the other one, but nope. So if you could see, like, just real quick, these two connectors. So the one you're looking for should look like this or exactly like this. So I had this other connector. I'm wondering what it's to. I have no idea, but it looked just like it. But here's the other one that I pointed out at first, sitting in this harness. So we'll go ahead and disconnect that. And then plug in our harness. So what's really nice too about harnesses is they almost make them dummy proof, right? So that you can't get it wrong. Like, you're not going to have the same connector multiple times or whatever. All right, so now that we got that together, I'm going to plug in my headlight and just hold it in my hand. We'll turn it on and see if it resolved the issue. All right, so we got the headlight connected. I'm going to flip on the switch. And right now we're sitting in this low beam. My passing lights aren't on right now, but that's because the little switch here is off. If I flip it on, I get nothing. Well, that ain't good. All right, so something's wrong. Time to dig in. I got it figured out. So that first plug I was looking at, I didn't even think, I even set it, right? that they put dummy plugs in them, and that's what it did. Is this was the back end of a dummy plug that I was looking at. So the connector I went to, it's actually the same thing. So now I'm not sure what that goes to, but it is the exact same connector as what goes to your fender tip light. But so I pulled this out, plugged in my switch so I can draw the power from, and well, now I can go ahead and show you all with testing it that it does what it's supposed to. Let me set you up on the tripod here. All right, so if we turn ourselves on, we've got our headlight going. We have our passing lights on, just to show the toggle switch still works. If I turn it off, I can turn them off. So we'll leave them in the on position, just so I can show you if I go to high beam, they stay on. So that little harness did the job. And at this point, now it's just buttoning it up. So I'm going to do just that, kind of get my wires back in there. I've got to get my switch back in place. Again, none of that is hard. Yeah, and we should have a resolution here. So let me go ahead and jump into that right now. So we're back assembled. And that was pretty quick. It literally was the one screw for the toggle switch on the back end there, or I should say nut, the 3 on that ring, and then the 1 for this little piece of trimming, and that's it. That's all you had to do. Of course, like I said, we cut that wire, but now I can go from low beam to high beam, and I don't lose anything. And if I want to, I can still shut them off with the toggle switch. Pretty simple, right? Like, not hard at all. I know I didn't film it, but I did cap that one wire that I was talking about. The one thing I did miss, and I told you I was going to do it, was to reuse that sleeve, just to help protect the wiring. And I totally forgot to put that back on. Not a big deal. It's in the housing, so it's not like it's going to get exposed to the elements like anything else would on the outside of the bike. When I do go in the bucket again, I'll take the time to go ahead and put that back on. So I'm going to save it, and I'll just need to get back to it. You don't have to use electrical tape to reattach it. You could even use some zip ties. So you can one on each end, maybe one in the middle, whatever. But ultimately, you know, what you want to avoid is a lot of times when you use electrical tape to wrap up your wiring, over time it gets sticky and nasty and just gums up. So that's the only reason I don't recommend it. Not for any kind of, like, don't worry about harm or anything like that. It'll be perfectly fine. It's yeah, it'd be great, but just that stickiness just doesn't look as clean. So got what I was looking for. 20 bucks. Can't beat that. And that's the name brand stuff. Now, I didn't see anybody off brand who carried this, so we might be stuck with buying that, but for 20 bucks, you can't beat it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made that process look very easy. And now I've got functioning passing lights, even when my high beams are on, so I couldn't be happier. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoyed the content, become a subscriber. I would really appreciate y'all joining in. Most of the folks that watch this, they're not subscribers, and that, you know, I bring many videos every year, and I hope that one of them will appeal to you and will lead you to become a subscriber. Again, it costs you nothing. It's not like any other subscription service out there, but it helps me out tremendously, so I appreciate you hitting that button. And if you don't want to miss out on the next video, hit the notification bell so that way you get noticed when that next one comes out. And until it does, I hope to see you in the win.